Finance Committee, June 4th, 9 a.m. Please call the roll.
Alt.
Here.
Bowers.
Here.
Curtis.
Yes.
Sticknut.
Here.
Young. Johnson. McTaggart.
Yes. Okay, we'll call meeting to order. We have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Alt, you have a second? Bowers. All in favor? Aye. Okay, move on to public comments. No public comments. We'll move to Myron Munyon. Is he not here? Okay, then we'll go to Susie.
Well, good morning. Just an update with everything going on with the COVID-19. Health Alliance does continue to pay for the COVID-19 testing at 100%. If any employee did, or dependent on the plan, did need to go get that tested. They're also covering telehealth or virtual visits for that, as well as mental health visits related to COVID-19 at 100% with no member cost share. So that's still continuing. We don't have an end date yet, but as soon as we do, I'll let you guys know on that. And then, of course, if they are tested positive and need to receive treatment, that would go if they're going in-network towards those in-network benefits. And then we are on track to get the renewal released early, as we do every year. So we're already talking renewals again. I don't have that yet. I'm hoping to have that here in the next few weeks, and I'll be able to hopefully share that at the next meeting. Perfect. Do I have any questions? No? Okay. Great to see you guys. Have a great day.
Thank you.
See you next month.
Okay, department heads. Lisa?
I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Senate Bill 1863 that passed a couple weeks ago. It hasn't been signed by the governor yet, but I'm sure it will be, because, excuse me, it's gonna affect my budget quite a bit, and that's the, election reform bill that, we're gonna have to send out, applications for vote by mail ballots to everybody that voted in the last 3 elections. So there's gonna be quite a bit of additional cost. That has to be done by August 1st. And then there's also additional requirements on election day. The polling places will still be open, you know, for anybody that thinks you have to vote by mail, that's not true. The whole goal of it is just to not have so much business at the polling places, you know, because of COVID. So they want more people to vote by mail, and more people will vote by mail, and that's not a problem, we can handle that, but there will be additional cost, because we'll have to have both everything that we had to have at, you know, election judges and all the costs for polling places, plus the additional postage and envelopes and stuff for vote by mail. We'll have a better idea, you know, by next month. Actually, I've got a conference call at 10 where our zone's gonna talk about it, but within 10 days of the governor signing it, then the State Board of Elections will be giving us a little bit more guidance about whether we have to do it, or can we possibly have our election vendors do it, how much, you know, more cost would that be? A lot of it is really up in the air, but there is definitely gonna be additional costs. It's probably gonna blow my budget out of the water for this year, so just a heads up.
Any clue how much or no?
Well, so we have, a lot of counties are talking about sending the applications out to everybody that's registered to vote. It's not required, but for some reason, a lot of counties are talking about it. If we did that, it would be around 18,000 people, so that would be around $9,000 just for the postage alone, let alone the, you know, the envelopes and the application and the printing of those things. If we sent them, we did figure out how many had voted in the last 3 elections, and that was, I think, around 10,700. So that would be more in the $5,000 to $6,000 range for that. So this is for just something, you know, that we never even had to do before, and obviously we didn't budget for it, because who knew, you know, this stuff was going to happen. So, but there should be some funding coming back to us from the CARES Act. You know, you can't really count on that till it's in your hand, but I really think it's probably very likely. We'll also have to have protective things in place for election judges and the polling place masks available to them, hand sanitizer available to everybody, that kind of additional cost. That shouldn't be a huge amount, but it is an additional amount. And we also have to have 3 election judges in our office. Probably wouldn't have to be on a daily basis once vote by mail starts, but before, when our office handled all the vote by mail stuff, and we can do a couple thousand, we have, in a big election like that, we'll have a couple thousand people vote by mail. Now we'll probably have, I would say, at least double that. But we are required to have 3 election judges process those vote by mail ballots, or at least be checking the signatures. Whereas before we could do it, now we have to have election judges that will have to pay. But we might be able to do that just a couple days a week instead of having them there every day. Everything's just see what we can do, what we can get by with, and how we can keep costs down. But and hopefully there'll be enough money coming to cover everything, all the additional costs.
Okay, anything else?
Nope, that's it for me.
All right. Tom?
Just one thing is good news. In the budget the city passed for fiscal year 21, kept our full funding for our staff, salary reimbursement. This year, 20 was the first year it's ever been full 100% funded. And I was fearful of a 25 to 35% cut with everything going on. And so that was a good news. We'll keep that through starting July 1st. We'll keep that full funding, and it's if there is good news, but that's a little bit of good news. But that's it.
Okay. Kurt?
As a lot of you know, tax bills went up. Some people are happy, some people are not. Some went up, some went down. So far, everything's going pretty smooth. Most of the people coming in that are paying are just paying both installments. So, and we've actually picked up a lot more people paying online. So that's turned out pretty good. But other than that, everything's going pretty smooth. We had a lot of address changes, which next year we're going to fix. Right now, anybody who changes their address, tax bills have to come back to us. Next year, we're just going to let the mail forward them on, and then that way we don't have to deal with them again. So, other than that, everything seems to be going pretty smooth. So,
Any more insight on sales tax or anything on what those numbers are looking like?
no, not really. I think I did after our last meeting. We talked. Did that website give you any more information? Or?
Not really, no.
Okay. We found a website on the State Department of Revenue that talked about maybe projections on sales tax and stuff, but it's not really. I don't think they know what's there yet.
No.
That's the problem. So.
Right. The big unknown still hanging out there. Okay, and then Joel?
Nothing major. We're looking at, so far, our MFT distributions look like they're down somewhere between 17 and 20%. I imagine that'll come back now as things start getting relaxed a little bit. We did get our first distribution of the Build Illinois funds, which is an MFT, was part of that gas tax increase bill from last year. So it's not looking too bad for us as far as road work goes, other than the fact that everybody's so busy with all the money out there and the prices are going up. So.
Understandable. And then, like usual, you guys got enough that we could probably ride through a bump here?
I've got enough, even in the highway general fund, I got enough I can get by at least a year and a half before I start having issues.
Yeah. That's what I thought. Ken?
Yeah, not much. Been kind of some sad times and some glad times. Right away early, I started working in remote. I switched all of my files and stuff, or all of my accesses over. So that worked really pretty well. I come in on evenings and weekends for physical files that I might have needed. It worked well enough that I almost started wearing my pajamas to work because it seemed really comfortable. But
a lot of our businesses are still there, and they're still talking about opening up, but it's gonna be really tough. It was just total pressure on the small businesses. All those signs that you see, Pritzker, small businesses, that's mine. I mean, he just about killed them. They're struggling. I helped a number of them apply for loans. The state loans were promised, but hardly any of them seemed to come out. The PPP loans were coming through pretty quickly for employers to maintain their payroll. But I don't know, we'll see. Everybody's, I think, dauber's up a little bit, and they're all anxious to get back at it. But I'm sure over a period of time, some of them suffered so much that some of them may not open back up. But I think most are going to try, but I'm not sure they'll all survive. It's just can't go from month to zero revenue and maintain a business. It's just tough. So it's not bleak, but it's going to be a struggle.
Okay, Jill?
We have started the sexual harassment training schedule. I emailed everybody a copy. We're gonna do an in-person training on Tuesday, allowing for those persons to come in the morning that are not board members, and then I scheduled board members in the afternoon. If you did not receive that schedule, please let me know. We are going to offer online training as well for the remaining employees and for employees that work different hours of the day, like 911 and sheriff. If you do have the training completed through your workplace or another vendor, we would need a copy of the certificate, and I'll have you sign off that you gave me a copy of the certificate and that you also completed the training. That will work just fine. The other things we have are just talking about the FY21 budget. I believe I have a schedule in the papers that you were given, a tentative schedule. We'll see if that works for everybody, and if it does, then I will discuss that with department heads and we'll go from there.
Good? Yes.
Jill, on the training, what about this, did you send out a schedule, or did we talk to you, or what?
I sent out an email the schedule. The schedule wasn't there. It wasn't there.
No, I didn't see schedule.
No, I didn't see schedule.
Oh, I apologize.
You said it in there, but it's
Yeah.
not, you know.
Well, it should have been as an attachment.
It wasn't.
I got it.
You didn't get it as an attachment? Okay, you guys got it?
I got
I
it.
mean, it doesn't.
I'll resend it, and then if you have any issues, just let me
I'm
know.
gonna make a copy of it.
How long are the sessions?
They're about 45 minutes long, so I went ahead and blocked out an hour, just for transition. For transitioning and for cleanup, because we plan on just wiping everything down and spraying in between sessions. We are having 7 sessions with 9 people at a time. Right now, we just plan on doing the one in person, just to get a majority of people done, including the board members that can attend, and the department heads, and then I just filled in with some of the people that work here in the building. If we need to schedule another in-person, we can, but the goal is to kind of work it out to where we can do it in-house going on in the future. So,
And it's here.
yes, it's here. We're gonna use the boardroom since the board meeting. John got with me this morning, and I did not have time this morning to email everybody, but the board meeting is going to be held out at Highway. So,
Okay. The next, we were gonna talk about the upcoming budget. We need to have the hearings next month. I think she has a schedule. Jill put together a proposed schedule here for when that would occur. It's like Tuesday, July 21st and Thursday, July 23rd. Did you have a chance to talk with any of the attendees or anything?
I have not. I just
Okay.
wanted to
Yeah.
propose some dates, and then if that works for the committees, then I will go ahead and get that out to department.
I think we
heads.
just, unless somebody has some major issue with it, we need to get that out to all the relevant people and make sure that their times work and all that stuff, and they got it on their calendar. We can always finalize it at July's meeting, at the
Yeah.
beginning of July, and make sure we're clear that that's officially set in stone. But we'll assume this is right until someone balks, and we'll get that straightened up in first week of July.
Yep, I'll take care of that.
As far as when do you plan to send out the
The workbook.
spreadsheets or whatever for them to?
I'm hoping to have them out by the end of this month, so they have plenty of time.
Okay, so that's definitely, we need to get that out to them as soon as possible, so they got plenty of time.
Mhm.
And I will say, I don't know that we got to totally get into the budget stuff, but I think obviously we all know that the income, or with our revenues coming down and stuff, we're gonna have to do something to tighten things up. I had Jill put together a thing that looked at the salaries that each of you should have. That shows, obviously before I say that, the biggest expense we have every year in the general fund is salaries by a long shot. And so this was kind of just an analysis of what different salary increases look like versus each other. I think Jill also reviewed the union contracts and those kind of things. We tried to work with them on anything, and I think we can.
We can, we just have to give a 30-day notice, if we're gonna do anything as far as salaries go, and there's always the back pay that we'll have to consider.
So eventually we do have to
Right.
make up for
Eventually
it,
it's
but we
gonna
could,
come out.
in order to help cash flow, put off those raises. They do eventually have to occur, but it could help our cash flow in the event this lingers on. So that's obviously nothing we're making a decision about today, but that's an option, so to speak. As well as how much we give salary increases or whatever, what each of those salary increases look like for the salaried people. You should all have a sheet of what that looks like under some different scenarios. And how much money we're talking about. I think we did some quick numbers that Jill, John, and I got together.
Mhm.
If, I have it written down. If, what were they saying? They thought sales taxes might, 20% or something like that.
We estimated about 10%.
I think 10 to 20 was the.
Yeah, 10 to 20 was the
range
range.
that somebody had given us. And if that were to occur, we figured, back up, obviously our two biggest income sources are the sales tax and the property tax. And we figured property tax isn't gonna be impacted too largely, other than maybe timings of these delayed payments and all those things that occur. But it probably going into next year's budget isn't gonna have that big of an impact on us. The sales tax, if the economy struggles to get back up and moving, but hopefully it's not the case. They're projecting a 10 to 20% decrease potentially in sales tax revenues, and I think we worked that, doing this from memory, but
I know.
I did the numbers and it was 150,000
Yeah,
or
approximately
so dollars
150,000.
that we would be short of compared to last year, or I mean, what our projections were for 2020. So I guess that's why we're looking at salaries and stuff like that. Nobody likes that, but we're just trying to find ways that
Mhm.
that's the biggest bucket. I mean, saving on pencils doesn't really do much. And unfortunately, the people cost is our biggest expense. So I don't think anything needs to be done today, but I wanted everybody to have that. And I'm glad Jill did that because we need to, eventually decisions are gonna have to be made and it's several months away, but things like that are gonna have to be decided on what we do, which we have to make that decision every year. But want to get that out in front of everybody early so they can have their own thoughts. And I will make sure we, hopefully by July, we'll see some of the numbers coming in of from back in March and April and all these times where everything got shut down and how bad it really did hurt us, because quite frankly, we're kind of flying blind at the moment and don't know how bad
Exactly.
it's gonna hurt us for this current year.
And then also John had asked me to get together just a short list of ways we can look at savings for FY20. I provided that copy. I'll also email that out to the department heads for you guys to utilize as well. Some of the things just include common sense things like turning off unnecessary lights, fans, or devices, setting your thermostat at a reasonable temperature, closing the blinds to help with energy savings. We discussed also emailing reports instead of printing so much paper. We'd like to utilize that option if the board members are okay with that. We can certainly discuss that further. For as far as employees, if you have any employees that are willing to go home early or work short days, another thing we can utilize is cross-training your employees. That'll help with some of the shortages in the office. And also keep an eye on your revenue and expense reports and set a possible goal of trying, I know it's difficult, but decreasing that by 2 to 3%.
Yeah, I think all the departments, we need to do as much as we can to save it. I was just looking at my notes that I'd written down when I talked with Joe before this meeting a couple weeks ago there. That $150,000 number I came up with was how much we thought for the current fiscal year that we might lose. I was earlier talking about 2021, the new budget, but that was for this year.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's a wild guess because we don't have the correct sales numbers. And we had talked about where we could save in the current year without necessarily having to change the budget or make layoffs or do anything very drastic. And the things we had come up with were money that we had saved or we could do to potentially save money, and we need to investigate some of these. I'm not saying these are for sure things that need to be done, but we had $40,000 for snow removal that was saved. That's already been realized with our $40,000 savings, so that was a big savings this past winter. So that's in our favor. There were $20,000 of heat pumps that we thought maybe possibly aren't going to have to spend. If you recall, every year in the general fund, we put a number in there because we know we have to replace these heat pumps, but most of the time we don't actually use all that money. And I think Joe had looked and there was $20,000 still sitting there. So if we cross our fingers and everything holds together this summer, there's, what's that?
They're working on right now, or cooling pump.
Yeah, but that was,
But it's not
I
gonna be
think-
20,000.
no,
But
there,
there's-
there,
yeah.
there was some maintenance type stuff that needs to be done, but these were for actually buying new heat pumps. And so as long as, just trying to find things that we think we might actually be able to save from what was in the actual budget. We still have the $50,000 contingency that was in the budget that hasn't been used, so in theory that's to our favor unless something else comes up, but I think this is a pretty big something else, so this could help cover our things. And then Jill seemed to think that, I think, not to put words in your mouth, but maybe 10% we could save on IT.
Yeah, well,
So that
that's
was
the
like
goal. We're gonna
$4,000, trying to get that down.
Cut IT as much as possible. And that's
So-
really helped having the on-site visits with Adam. We've seen, a reduction in tickets that we have to put in and pay at full price versus having Adam here.
So just those alone, that's $129,000. We don't really know what we're trying to shore up, but we thought it might be in the $150,000 range, so we're not that far off. Problem is, Lisa just dumped 20 grand on our lap this morning. The governor did, whatever, but hopefully those funds, hopefully you got more clarity next month and we can get clear on that, but it seems like, I think we're pretty close that for the current fiscal year, we can get pretty close to making everything work out, as long as we don't have any other major disasters, which who knows, but, and especially if sales tax dollars start coming back in quicker than what we're fearing, or it's not as bad as what we had in there, or any worse than what we had in there. Hopefully that'll be okay, and then if things continue to progress, maybe it won't impact the budget for as hard for next year. The one thing that it is if we start getting these numbers in here in the next month, that the 2020 year is worse than those numbers, or there's a bigger issue, then yeah, cutting back for next year and stuff, just so we have enough buffer in the general fund is gonna have to happen to make up for that. There's gonna be.
Just to give you an idea right now, I'm showing that we budgeted the 940,000 for sales tax, and we have already gotten in 526,000, so we're looking pretty good.
I think we are. I mean, that's what we had gotten together just to try and get a feel for it. It's hard to know because you're missing a very important number to know where we're at, but it seems like there's been enough good things that have happened, or the contingency and all those kind of things that we have there, and saving on the snow plowing and so on and so forth, that we're not gonna be too far off where we're gonna have a big shortfall. But if it's worse than salary freezes or capital freezes or things like that, we're probably gonna have to, it'll probably impact the 2021 thing even more so than the 2020 is what I'm getting at, just because we'll have to make up for it. But
Well, the one
some of
thing
that's
with
to be determined.
I said the one thing with the sales tax, I have noticed, and with the COVID thing, people have shopped locally more here and bought, I've seen more bicycles going out of Walmart and other places, and if you look at the car dealers, a lot of them have their inventories down because people have still been buying cars.
Exactly.
And so we may, our sales tax deal, we may come out pretty decent because like I said, everybody just stayed here and bought.
Right.
And
And
that's
so
one of the things that we had discussed, was the staying locally to avoid the larger crowds.
So hopefully that's to our favor, and we can, within reason, get away relatively unscathed. But
Probably the only pain connected to that one is there's a lot more people that I know that are ordering stuff online now that were afraid to do it before, but they tried it, so there'll be a little offset there. Hopefully whoever they're ordering from collects sales taxes and it'll feel.
Most of them will have to now.
They're getting there, yeah.
yeah, there's too many that, it seems like that loophole's been pretty much eliminated.
Yeah, I don't think that, like you were just kind of trying to explain it, I don't think the consuming has gone down, it's just moved to different directions.
Sure.
So if that sales tax can all filter its way back, it might not be as bad.
Well, hopefully. So I guess I was just glad Jill put some of that stuff together and these ideas. Obviously, any other department heads, anything we can do to save helps and push off whatever. But hopefully we know a little bit more as those March and April numbers come in here in the next month, and we'll have a better feel for it next month. And then can start thinking about that for the budget as we get closer to August. So, anybody else got anything they want to share or say about the, I guess, 2021 budget or current situation? Okay, if not, we'll move on. Did I? Yeah. We went over that sheet. Okay, then we'll go on to the claims. Finance and highway. Okay. Joel's gonna attest to all these.
Any questions I can answer on any of them?
Hey, Joe, how long is the bridge gonna be closed?
They're supposed to be done September.
Okay.
Is what how that goes.
They tearing it all out?
Yeah, the beams and everything are coming off. They're putting new caps on top of the piers and then resetting those, reusing those beams. So basically the abutments and pier stems will be the only thing. And then of course the beams will be reused.
You're gonna straighten it out?
No. I'd love to, but
It's hard to get a tractor through there, but.
yeah, it's gonna be quite a bit wider because we're doing, the rail's actually going out farther. There'll be some more space on it than what their current one was, so.
I'll call off that little bit.
Okay, got a motion to approve the claims. Do we have a second? Second. Okay. Take the roll. Paul?
Paul?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
Curtis?
Yes.
Signa?
Yes.
Johnson? Yes. McTaggart?
Yes. Okay. And I think old business or new business? If not, we'll, oh, wait, one thing, I think it's been mentioned briefly that here's your instructions on the county board meeting next Tuesday.
I'm gonna email it as well.
Okay. It's gonna be out at the highway department and face mask recommended. There's also a call-in number. Yeah, so there's the instructions for that, and other than that, take a motion. Do we have a second to adjourn? Marvin did, I think. And all in favor? Aye.
Need to get Joel out of here, go out there and get started on the refreshments.